welcome everybody to the crossover Tenet spoiler review from the Real Talk Show and Seb Screens It. I'm Justin,
I'm Seb.
and let's get into the spoilers. If you haven't seen our non-spoiler regular review of Christopher Nolan's Tenet, go check out our previous video. It should be somewhere in the same area. Because this might show up first for you. So go back to the other one and watch that one first.
Yeah.
Like it, subscribe it, comment, do all that, and then come back to this one. All right. So now let's get into the spoilerific, heavy-duty stuff with Tenet. My first question is for you, Seb, is that this was marketed not like we were specific. I feel like I was specifically told this was not a time travel movie.
I think Pattinson mentioned that in his interview, but that was a lie.
It's a big like I don't know if that was on purpose or they just didn't want you to focus on that because with being the inverse being the big showcase of this movie, but I feel like the time travel is definitely in the background of this film that causes maybe some plot holes that you or things that you missed the first time around, but they're definitely doing it. So my first question is to you. With these inverse machines, are they going in and doing their inverse and just waiting or like weeks or months, or do they have an actual time machine to like go somewhere?
Dude, that's so funny. That's exactly what I was going to ask you because on the second viewing, I was like, wait a minute. How the fuck? They're saying like, oh, it was 10 days ago. I'm like, do you just put yourself 10 days ago? Or well, what you said is true. Like, are you inverting this whole time? You're just like walking backwards for 10 days? That makes no
going into like a storage container with the plastic walls and the pumped in air so you can properly breathe. And like sitting in one of those for like a month.
I feel like it was both, and I feel like Nolan didn't want to bother you with the specifics of that. That's why he's just like, don't try and understand it, just feel it. So there's definitely time travel. I feel like Pattinson said that as a trolling joke because he's a troll in a good way. He's an awesome guy,
sure.
But he definitely trolls, which you can't blame him. They're sick of these questions that they get, and they don't want to spoil the movie. So there is 100% time travel in this movie. It does not make sense otherwise. And I think it's a combination of both. I think those machines do more than they said that they do. I think they put them but how do they? Where's the dial that says like January 12th at 4:40 p.m. or something? That's another question I had, and I didn't try to think about that.
How did we get them in the first place?
Yeah, they're sent from the future, right?
Yeah, how are they sent? Were the instructions sent? And if so, how were the instructions sent? It like they're. I mean, right? I mean,
From what I'm understanding, because we're already going into spoilers here, if what's his name, the protagonist, which is John David Washington, if he discovered Tenet, went back into the past to train Robert Pattinson. By the way, we didn't talk about that. I love their friendship in this movie. I think that's one of the best parts. You were right about everybody mostly being flat, but that was one of the best parts. They're acting together, Robert Pattinson and him. It's so beautiful, especially that second time, the way he's just like, when he orders him the Diet Coke and he knows he doesn't drink on the job and he's just like, I actually prefer whatever. And he's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
The way he says it, it's so beautiful, dude. And like the way Pattinson acts there and the way John David Washington gets that affection and we as the audience get the affection from him, I thought that was the best thing. The whole fucking movie is their friendship. Because you don't know what Pattinson's allegiance is until very late, which is a great misdirection that Nolan did. And what was I talking about? Where was I? Shit, I hate when I go on the tangent.
No, you're fine. No, this is good. I mean, we're talking about him purposely giving us misdirection. Where we got the time travel stuff from?
Yeah. So if John David Washington went back in the past to train Pattinson, which is what he says he does, then I feel whoever made the machines in the future, that scientist lady or whatever who did it, they probably inverted themselves in the past to give it to whoever. They don't really go into that, but that's all I can theorize is that they inverted themselves, showing the technology to a certain group of people. It doesn't make sense otherwise, right? So,
well, so my other question is, so we're to assume that the future is bad, hence why they made this machine, or the future is bad because they made this machine?
Well, remember what Ken Prado said, that global warming was the oceans ran dry and all that stuff, climate change. So the world's ending. So I feel like the world was ending regardless, and then they made the machines to go back and destroy the past.
Yeah, so like, I mean, is the future as grim? Like, so they Like, do they try and destroy the world before it gets destroyed by itself? Because if they can't have the world, no one can. Like,
That's the point.
there's so much going on. I think also that that we're talking about right now that isn't explicitly or implicitly said in the movie that deserves discussion and talk because of how it fits in. Again, the whoever built these machines, why the Kenneth Branagh character is the one that gets it, whether by mistake when he digs up that thing as a child or whatever. Um, like there's so much confusion that I still have. Like everything still makes sense, but I have so many more questions the more I think about the movie. Do you think
Mhm.
that's a plus or a minus? Do you think like, oh, Nolan is leaving blanks because A, that creates more discussion and that's good, or B, he doesn't even know the answer and he just puts it out there. Like I feel like it's kind of like Donnie Darko. Like,
I still
uh,
haven't seen Donnie Darko. I still haven't seen it.
okay, all right. Well, there's
I'll.
that's a separate episode for sure. But there's a lot of questions in that one as well. I'll say. So, do you think that the director purposely with Nolan is purposely asking questions he doesn't know the answer to, or that he does, but he also wants to encourage discussions and people to fill in their own answers?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you hit it on the head right there. That line that Clemency Posey, whatever her name is, the actress that's the scientist, other people have written this. That's Nolan speaking to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try and understand it, just feel it.
Yeah.
And that's when I listened to that, I enjoyed the movie way more. I think you're right. And what you're suggesting is that Nolan definitely doesn't even understand his own movie for sure. I think he does that on purpose. I don't think it's lazy writing because we've seen lazy writing and we know what that looks like.
Yeah.
This is more like he intentionally did it. He wanted to provoke us and he wanted us to have a fun ride and then himself maybe bring up because time travel, you should never understand time travel. This is why I hate time travel in the movies. And one of my coworkers brought up, they're like, wait, don't you hate time travel movies? Why'd you love this one? And they're absolutely right. It's because this is different. I hate movies that have time travel and neatly explain themselves because should a movie about time travel make sense? That's why I fucking hated the ending of Looper. You remember Looper? Right? Great first opening act with the implied torture scene and all that, but without going into too much, the way that Joseph Gordon-Levitt ties up the plot and saves everything was the laziest thing to me, and it was so easy. You know what I mean? They
Yeah.
build up all this stuff, and then just like that, it's like, come on, that's phony. That's nobody wants to see that. A high schooler writes a neatly written loop, But that's why I like Tenet is because it's good that we have these questions, man. It's good that it doesn't make sense. I think Nolan knew that. I think he's smart enough to understand, hang on, if I'm screwing with the fabric of time, there should definitely be no 100% answers. Everybody should be like, what the hell's going on? How did this happen? Because, dude, if time travel existed, would it make sense to any of us? No, not really. Like, right? I mean, you can't change certain things and you can. That was another message of the movie was the whole belief in, I guess, avoiding determinism and going against your fate. Like there was a lot of lines like that. You remember when
Oh yeah.
she tries to kill Kenneth Branagh, she's like burn in hell, Andre, and she cuts him down, and that boat is going way too fast, and he's like, I gotta save, and she goes, these boats are not meant to be turned this way, and then he
It doesn't.
says
Yeah.
they can if you need them to, and he changes. That was like a little visual metaphor for the whole swimming upstream thingy. You can fight against your destiny, I suppose. So that was a positive message for it. I love that stuff, dude. I love the idea that we have control of our fate, and not easily, right? But I think repeating what I've said, like I always do, is that Nolan intentionally made it confusing, and he for sure does not understand the whole picture. There's no fucking way he does.
I do have one question for you, and this isn't saying that I know the answer, but this is going specifically to the timeline in the movie, going from the end to the beginning. So at the very end, since again this is all spoilers, when we kind of get the reveal that the Robert Pattinson character has been trained by the protagonist, and he's now going back just shortly uh, during the raid sequence to provide the open door and get killed or whatever. But that the protagonist is now going to go back in time and train Robert Pattinson in the past. My question is that if the protagonist goes back in time, where is he throughout the entire movie? If there's a second protagonist, because he had to have trained Robert Pattinson, did he just stop and leave that timeline? I know he can't interact with his main timeline, but is he still there in the background, or is he doing nothing? Where is the protagonist during the entire movie, his second version?
So the whole parallel timeline thing, or
Well,
just
the protagonist has to go back and train Robert Pattinson, right?
yes.
Wi- I mean, if he's training Pattinson, and then the whole where current timeline meets current Pattinson that's been trained by protagonist, where is the training protagonist during this timeline of the movie?
I don't know.
Does he
Um,
go now? Can if you use the time travel machine to invert yourself and go back in time, do you just have to live in forward time, or can you go forward in time, or can you only go back?
yeah, what happens to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because is yeah, the protagonist at the end of the movie, he's being inverted the whole time, right?
Well, he's they at the very end they're all back to normal, but he's gonna go invert himself to go train Robert Pattinson to make sure that this all works out. But where is that version of him during the timeline? And again, if you go back in
I
time
don't know,
using
man.
these inverse machines, can you go forward in time, or because you have to live in reverse time to go back in time, you have to just live forward as well?
You might have to just live forward because that would explain Pattinson having to go back to save the bomb, which they already saved, right? So he has to live out his fate. By the way, that scene, I'm still confused. He got shot in the head blocking a bullet for John
Yeah,
David Washington, right?
yeah,
After he picked the lock, right?
yeah.
Also, did you notice the second viewing, the keychain thing that he has or whatever? He's the guy in Kiev at the beginning that he's the mysterious gunman dude. That blew my mind in the first 2 minutes or whatever. I mean, that reverse bullet shot, was he taking a bullet or was he shooting
I think he
um,
was taking a bullet and
in the opening scene,
in
right?
the opening scene. Yeah.
That was so good. But then if he took a bullet, why wasn't it on his body, or did he hide it? Or
Well, no, he caught because the bullet was right next to the bomb, and he catches it, and I think it was just to make sure that the protagonist follows the trail to try and figure out more that there is something else here, so that him trying to figure this out works in his benefit as opposed to just being blind to everything.
yeah. Also, really quickly, did you notice? It might just be me. Again,
Mhm.
at the beginning, the first time you see John David Washington, when the guy's like, "Wake up to the Americans," and do you notice the way the bullet flies? It looks like it's inverted when he's just, you know what I'm saying?
I thought that like I wasn't sure if they were just it was just like a bullet catch and he was just showing like that he's proficient and he can kind of do a show off move, or is that the inverted?
Inverted John David
Yeah,
Washington.
like I don't know. I is just at what point is it not him? Which are there two simultaneous John David Washington simultaneous protagonists in this movie, and we just only see one?
Well,
Well,
there has to be.
there
There
could
has
be
to be.
three. Wait, wouldn't there be three at one
Yeah, because
point?
he fights himself. Remember, so there
Yeah.
should be three of them.
So there's three protagonists.
Because if you think about it, I read this too. You remember that scene where he's just like doing pull-ups and he's just sleeping in that thing? Somebody was speculating they put him there so that the other John David Washington could go accomplish what he needs to, and he won't run into himself. Because we don't know how long he's in there
Interesting.
for, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably for a couple days because you see him sleeping and stuff while he's
Yeah.
waiting to be briefed or whatever it was. But that's what I read. Now it makes sense, right? They just keep him in there. So I don't know, man. This
But
is
so
crazy.
if in the torture scene is that pre-knowledge inverted protagonist, or is that uninverted, like unknowledgeable, and like did he only bite the pill because he knew he had to, or what
Ooh.
like
Or if he knew it was a fake pill
yeah.
and he was just pretending the whole time, like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, I want to see it again. This is crazy. Like,
It's
I love the sound design. I love the way that guy tortures him, and the train track comes right when he's pulling his teeth out. It's like, "Ah!" Dude, that shot is so good. I love that shot. I was looking for it. I wanted to make it my cover photo, but I
it
couldn't
it,
find
it,
it.
it it also had a very the the coloring in that scene seemed very different than any other scene in the entire movie. Like it was
Hmm.
super saturated and muted with very dark colors. It was heavy blacks and browns and grays,
I
and
loved it.
it didn't match any. Like I obviously it was done on purpose, but it was just so contrasting to everything else in the movie in terms of its look of that scene. Just like even like his skin color and his bloodshot eye,
Hmm.
and it was which I thought that was when I saw that in that like a brief glimpse of that in the trailer, I thought that was gonna be the end of the movie, and I was like, "Fuck you guys for showing us like where this is gonna end." And
Right? Seriously.
I was so relieved to see that that was not the case because a lot of times I'll see a trailer and I'm like, "Well, I know this isn't gonna happen because I saw this scene later on that has to happen, so I know that this character isn't gonna die or this isn't gonna happen."
I hate
Or
that shit. Yeah.
yeah, and I know it's not the director or the filmmaker's fault. It's the marketing department and the studios that were like, well, we just got to put butts in seats. I don't care if it gets spoiled. Um, but yeah, I was totally fooled by that. So I was like, whoa, we're getting this scene now. So I was pleasantly surprised
Me
um,
too. That's
for
another thing. I loved that.
that. Um, there were some rumors before this movie came out that this movie takes place in the same world as Inception. Do you think that's just fan wishes and fans just wanting interconnected worlds in movies that don't exist because they like the idea of a shared universe, or do you think it's possible that uh, maybe we get a crossover movie in the future, or that Nolan's movies do take place in a shared universe, or is this just fans wanting something for the sake of wanting something?
It's probably a fan thing, but Nolan's movies always reference the other, and Nolan does that. So there could be more than what we see, and maybe that's why the fans are speculating that. But all his movies reference the others so heavily, and this one, I think there's a reference to most of his other movies in this film, like even the silly masks, like Bane, just right. By the way, I loved that. I loved the that's what I felt like wearing the mask in the theater. I felt like I was John David Washington trying, not being able to breathe regular air with inverted lungs. So I thought that was a really cool note. But then that doesn't make sense for a lot of other scenes. That's the question I have is how are they breathing later on when they don't have their masks on, when they're still inverted?
So those scenes, the walls are lined with like clear vinyl plastic, and gas is just being pumped or air is being pumped into the room so that they don't have to carry long dialogue scenes with the masks on. At least that's what I thought. If you look at the wall, the walls have clear saying that this is an airtight room with the air being piped in so that they don't have to have that covering for long periods of time, which
I
is
didn't
my
even
guess.
notice. Yeah,
Yeah, that
that's pretty cool.
um, we're still digging into this. I think we could go on forever, but like, what questions do you still have for this movie?
Aside from the ones we've already asked.
Yes, yeah. Like, like, still, like, what sticks out in your head? Like, what do you want? If you could ask, all right, if you could ask Christopher Nolan one question about this film, what would it be?
Ha! Oh, there's many, but I don't think we've talked about the scene with the two rooms where Andre ends up shooting Elizabeth Debicki.
Hmm.
That scene,
Which is
because
also a red and blue room. They keep going with the red
I
and blue.
loved that color scheme. But the first time, it's so hard to catch what's going on, and you understand it's because half the dialogue is being said backwards, and
Yes.
then you hope. Thankfully, the scene happens again from the other perspective, so you hear the reverse. But I still have trouble understanding how those rooms work. And he's like, "Oh, look through the window. You can see it already happening. Like when they're pushing her through the stretcher, and then they see on the other side. That made no sense to me. I don't know if it made. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
what were they? What was he pointing to? He's like to prove it. Is that them in the future they're looking at through the window?
I mean, it's it's being reversed, but they know it has to happen because they see it happening. Like it's the proof that it happens. So like I feel like um I don't know, like it's like if we go to like something weird like Minority Report, where
Yes.
the ball gets rolled. I think you were
That
posting
scene I
this. Yeah,
compared it to. Yep.
yeah, and like, how do you know that the ball was going to fall? And somebody versus catching it to stopping it from falling. You see this happening, like, so you just kind of have to trust and know that that is the result of what's going to happen, and you follow through. You can change it, but like that's that's what you wouldn't have seen that if you did. You have free will, you have control over it, but that's the decision that you're making. You just maybe don't know it yet.
So what they're pointing through the window is normal time happening or the future?
They're pointing to what's about to happen because they know that they need to go through, and that she needs to get out to the other side. And so, with also with that scene, when before the sequence happens where Kenneth Branagh is torturing his wife with the guns or whatever, he tells his guy to like tell me exactly what happens as it happens, so that he can go inverse and do the little car switcheroo, and then when he realizes that the protagonist lied, that's why he has to go back and do it again.
That's another scene I was lost during. So he had the algorithm and he switched it. It
Yeah,
wasn't in the orange case, right?
correct.
Where did
Yes.
he put it?
He had put it in like he said he put it in a glove box, but it was somewhere. I think it was like in the other vehicle or something like that. And so, oh God, it hurts my brain a little bit.
It really
All right.
does.
Oh, wait. All right. Let's focus in on when he gets not killed in the car that ices up. Why didn't he die? Did he die? Is that a different protagonist that we see later?
Oh, ooh, a fourth protagonist.
like I like how did he not die? And he's just like, fine on a stretcher. And why didn't Kenneth Branagh like make sure he was dead?
Yeah, that made no sense. Why didn't you just shoot him in the face or reverse shoot him or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah. And like if he's as knowledgeable about this as, we assume that he is, why wouldn't he, ensure or make sure that he died? And he just kind of wakes up and everything's fine. He's just got burns from the fire in a car that exploded that was upside down and no one was around.
And then he
Like,
gets hypothermia. How do you recover from that so quickly?
yeah. And also when they go back to the plane heist scene, he's complaining about an injury that he has that he hasn't gotten yet, and he's feeling
Yeah.
the after effects. Um, so if that happens with the reverse, would you start feeling the hypothermia before it happens?
But if he's inverted,
Uh
it
huh.
hasn't happened yet, right?
Yes, but if he so he's but he it wouldn't he feel it in forward time at so like wherever he is normally during that action sequence where he's probably in the two rooms while that second later car sequence is happening, wouldn't he feel the cold or no?
He, I mean, he must have, right? I mean,
I don't know. Like if the wound, if you start feeling the wound before it happens in inversion, wouldn't if you're inversion and you get hypothermia, wouldn't you feel that forward in time right before you start going inverted because it's about to happen?
so would he just be like cold as shit or
Yeah.
something?
I don't know.
Maybe,
Like
maybe he
I'm
did.
just throwing out ideas here. I have,
What if we missed something? What if he goes like this in one scene? Like,
I mean, me like a throwaway, like burr, like
Burr,
yeah, like I
is it
don't,
cold in here?
yeah, I- um, but he wakes up and I think he's still inverted, so maybe not, or they just warm him up with the little space blankets, the little metallic-y gold space blanket. I don't know. Okay, and then the other, another question I had was after after the wife kills the Kenneth Branagh character. I can't remember her name. or the actor's name. But when I just can't. When she
Elizabeth Debicki or something. But yeah, go ahead.
there we
She's
go.
great. I like her a lot. She's cool.
When she kills the Kenneth Branagh character
Hmm.
with the gun, that's not current timeline Kenneth Branagh, correct? That's
The
Kenneth Branagh
future,
with future Kenneth Branagh in the past. He had gone back to that moment in time because that was the last time he felt love from his wife.
and which is when he's going to end the world, right?
Yes.
So that's
So
future.
she kills him, but then they tie the body to the boat to drag it away.
Yes.
Obviously, because you don't want the two bodies to meet. But what's the purpose of keeping the body? Like, why not just, let it sink to the ocean?
Oh, I thought that was to not get caught by authorities or whatever, because he's a high profile, a Russian oligarch, right? Like if they
True.
find the body, they'd be like, "Oh, we're gonna come get you," you know. But if he
Yeah,
disappears, maybe they buy some time, right?
true. But then what about that timeline, Kenneth Branagh?
Yeah, where is he?
Exactly.
But if it was the inverted one, because he has all the answers, it would always be him then, right? There would be no, he'd be in the future. The normal timeline Kenneth Branagh would be in the future, right?
I mean,
Getting ready.
he goes back to experience that moment again after his old self leaves that boat, and um, I mean, right? Like, how would he replace his old self if he wants to relive that moment on the boat?
But I guess that's the whole paradox, right? Because if he's the one reliving the moment, that was
Hmm.
always the future Kenneth Branagh, right?
I mean, we when the Elizabeth character, she says that he was that was the last time that I don't. Oh God, it hurts. It hurts the
Yeah, and
head.
how is he breathing on the boat if he's inverted?
But that's what I don't think that he is. I think he inverted himself to go back in time to that point, and then uninverts himself to live forward in that moment in time.
Ah, that's what you. Yeah, that makes perfect sense actually.
That
So with all the knowledge of the future, right?
yes,
That makes perfect sense. So then you're right. Would there be a second?
that's what I'm thinking. Like, I mean, wouldn't there have to be so that you can complete the loop?
So funny. We had
Is
four.
this movie a loop, by the way?
I don't know. We have four protagonists and one villain. It doesn't even make sense to me anymore. But is it a loop? Is it the same forwards as it is backwards? I don't think so. I
And
don't.
do certain things need to continuously happen? Like, will there always some need to be somebody to go back in time to make sure everything goes properly?
Well, that's why Robert Pattinson goes knowingly to his death after the ending
Yeah,
is saved.
but like he knows he's going to his death, but he also knows he's about to be trained in the past as well, and that person is going to be trained to learn to know that he needs to go into the past to die, so that the next person, the previous, it's like a it's a death loop.
Yes.
Like,
So then this is. It's like, oh god. I just I want to follow up. You know what I mean? Like now that Tenet is formed by the protagonist. By the way, I love that. I love that he didn't have a name. I loved that he was just called the protagonist. I love that it was the Priya woman who said that to him, and he's like, I'm the protagonist at the end. And I was reading how John David Washington was like debating, like, how do I say that line? Am I saying I'm the protagonist, like I'm a protagonist, or is my name the protagonist? You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
say I'm Justin, like I'm the protagonist. So the way he says that line is so perfect at the end, and I absolutely love it. We both been working for me this entire time. I thought that was just so good. But now it doesn't need a sequel, absolutely not. But I would not be mad if Nolan made another movie with the future of Tenet. Now that it's been established with more Tenet things,
Oh yeah.
it could easily be its own James Bond
Well, because
thing. Not even necessarily the same.
they said
But
the algorithm machine or whatever it is that gets separated into the pieces, with one going to Aaron Johnson, kick ass or whatever,
Aaron
and
Taylor Johnson.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, yeah. So they're going back to bury these pieces in different points in time and across the world. Is that what they're doing? And if so, then wouldn't that be fixing everything if they do that? If they don't get discovered, then none of that past stuff could possibly happen.
It, because the bombs never get discovered.
Yeah.
I I
There's
got
so
nothing, man.
yeah, it definitely warrants discussion. I think we could go on and on about this, but I think uh, we should wrap it up just a little bit here and um, talk about for people seeing this movie. Um, and going back and seeing it again and just enjoying the spoilers of this movie, what can people expect the second time around they view this? Should they be asking questions? Are we overanalyzing? Are we being quirky? Or does this movie deserve the long winded discussions and paradoxes? Or is this just Nolan fucking with us?
Both, but I love it. I love that he's fucking with us. It worked, and I like having these discussions. And it is a movie worth talking about. And the second viewing, I would say people just this time definitely strain your ears to listen. Now that you know what happens, pay attention to those symbols like Robert Pattinson's little thing on his backpack or whatever,
Yeah, a little
and just
charm.
pay attention to the ideas of because you now know all the events. Just look at how they happen and when they happen, and
Yeah,
that's what's the weird thing. You're gonna understand more of the plot, but you're going to be more confused in how it gets plotted, and like we're not even sure or why it happens and
yeah, because
when it
all you
happens.
need is a word and the hand symbol that also just gets carefully dropped like a couple of times in the movie. They're talking about the flow of time, and it's like, well, who came up with that, and when did that become the official? Did the protagonist set that up as the official like hand signal? Um, but yeah, so I think this is as far as we should go because we could talk all day about this. I think the bottom line is go see this movie and
For
see it
sure.
again.
See it again.
Yeah, see it
Yeah.
again. Bring if other people want to come in and we can have a separate video on just discussions on what you think happened, what theories and ideas and answers to questions that we couldn't figure out. Please leave us comments. And we'd love to respond to them in each of our respectable social medias. But I just want to say a big thank you to Sebastian and Seb Screens It for doing this amazing crossover. This was so much fun.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we can do more things like this in the future.
For sure.
And the best thing you can do to, if you like this content, is to support us on all our social medias. Again, you have the Real Talk Show at facebook.com/the Real Talk Show. We have our Instagram and Twitter, and obviously Sebastian has his YouTube channel, Seb Screens It. So make
Mhm.
sure that you subscribe, ding the dong, aka ring the bell for notifications, and comment and give it a big old thumbs up. So thank you again, Sebastian, for doing this and talking
Yeah.
about this amazing, complex brain teaser of a movie. And thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we'll see more content from us soon. So thank you so much.